Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're in charge of time.
This afternoon's event, I would like everybody to join me in the pledge of allegiance, if you would, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My name is Bob Kelch. I'm the town supervisor for the town of Ontario. I would like to welcome everybody to our town and to our town hall. And especially welcome to two very special guests who are with us today. First is Anne-Marie Buerkle, who currently represents us in the 25th Congressional District down in Washington, D.C. And Ursula Rozum, who also would like to represent us in the 25th Congressional, 24th then?
Yeah.
There's a little number confusion because it's going to change with the new seating of Congress, but at any rate. So welcome to the both of you. And I would now like to introduce Jim Reed, who will moderate today's event.
We're going to begin with opening statements right in just a couple of minutes. I'll be the only one that handles the questions, but if you want to ask your own question, I'll pull questions from the basket. If you want to ask your own question of the candidates, you can do that. If you don't want to do that, I'll do it for you. Okay, does that sound fair? We're going to keep it civil, of course. If not, you can deal with him, okay? There's no reason not to be civil, right? I mean, we're just here for the same reason, to listen to both candidates and make up our minds about what we're going to do, although I think some of you probably have already done that. That's all right. Should we wait for the questions, or should we begin with the statement?
Open statement, then
Who
we'll
is-
wait for questions right
Who was first?
Oh, we need to get the sign. Okay. We'll do a straw here. Also going. Sorry about that. Here, this is just a
If they go over their time limit, I'm going to wail on this guy.
Yeah, just get a point at it.
So I hope they do.
Why don't you just toss it for her? Yeah.
I have a point.
Might take this time, ladies and gentlemen, just to silence your phones would be great.
First we'll call heads, and it is head.
Right, so Anne-Marie will start with her opening statement.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank the Town of Ontario for hosting us today. I appreciate it. And Jim for being our moderator, thank you very much. And to Ursula for participating in the debate. And to all of you for coming here. And I would say our town halls are always civil. We have great discussions and we talk about the issues that are important to us. So I'm very glad to be here. And just as Jim mentioned, there is confusion about the districts. With redistricting, our current New York 25th Congressional District is going to become New York's 24th Congressional District. So when you go in to vote in that voting booth and you fill in your circle, it's New York's 24th Congressional District. And we are so fortunate that we have all of Wayne County. I'm sad that I lost Monroe County, but that we have all of Wayne County, all of Cuyahoga County, all of Onondaga County, and part of Oswego County in the new district. So, Wayne County is not a stranger to me. We've had over 60 mobile town hall units here since I've been in office. We've had town halls here. In fact, the first town hall I did when I first was elected was in Newark. The people, I believe, in Wayne County represent really the values that are so fundamental to the United States of America. I always say when I come to Wayne County, it's like coming home. I'm glad to be here today to really lay out for you my position on many issues, the issues that are important to all of us in upstate New York, to really give you a chance to ask me questions, which I think we've done over the last 2 years, about how important it is that you are here this morning, how important it is that you have the opportunity to meet all of us. And I don't mean to call out the poor young man who's here with the camera, but the best Dan Maffei could do is to send his young person here to tape. And I think that really is an insult to all of the voters in New York's 24th District that he is unwilling to participate in a venue such as this. It is so important, and it's what's wrong with politics. The politicians think they can be up here and they don't have to be down here with the people that they represent. So I look forward to laying out my visions and my thoughts regarding where I stand on the issues. I think you will see that this race, our race, and the national race is really about two very different visions for the United States of America. And really the essence of what I believe in is that the greatness of this country is because of the people in this room, and not that Washington, not that government that's down in Washington. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Ursula Rozum. I'm the Green Party candidate for Congress and for the future 24th Congressional District. And I do want to start off by thanking Anne Marie's campaign for organizing these town halls. I think folks throughout the district are very appreciative of her accessibility to voters and this willingness to answer questions from people that might not have all the same political views. So I'm a newcomer to Wayne County, although I did spend some time here this summer campaigning and vacationing along Lake Ontario. And I'll let you know that I was born and raised in Syracuse, New York. My family came here in the 1980s. My parents were both active in the anti-communist movement in Poland. They were with the Solidarity trade union movement, and they came here to the U.S. As political refugees, and they came here to the U.S. believing that this is a country where that if you work hard, if you have a stick-to-it kind of attitude, that you can make something of yourself. And unfortunately, we're at a time right now that there just isn't work, and people that want to work cannot find the opportunity to work, and our government is failing us. And the government isn't even ours anymore. People are what's supposed to be central to a democracy, and right now it's special interests and corporations that have taken over the leadership of both major parties, and I think there's a serious problem in Washington. So I agree with Anne Marie that there is a choice to be made. Do we support politics that puts people first, or do we support politics that's run by special interests and corporations? And I look forward to answering your questions about the issues that matter to all of you, and I look forward to giving you some positive policy proposals for how we can really move forward and really solve the crises facing us as a country. Thank you.
For those of you who were asking yourself who I am, I have a television show on WCNY, the PBS station in Syracuse. I've known Anne Marie for a very long time. I've just met Ursula. And I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy that I get mileage reimbursement for Our first question is from Alicia Davies. Is Alicia here?
You can read it.
I can read it? Thank you. If information is discovered and released, what can happen to Hillary and or the administration regarding the Benghazi attack? And since you went last, we'll start with Anne Marie.
I think, as you all know, yesterday, Secretary of State has accepted the responsibility, and I think if she is saying that the policy failure, the failure to respond to the request for additional security is her fault, then she should contemplate resigning. However, I will say that ultimately the buck stops with the President of the United States. She answers to him. And I think the whole situation, what happened in Benghazi, the fact that 4 Americans were killed, an ambassador from this country was dragged through the streets and humiliated, is absolutely something that every American should be outraged about. It's not a Democratic or a Republican issue. It's not a progressive or a conservative issue. It is an issue of this country doing what we need to do to protect American citizens, and every American should be very concerned about it. You know, we had a hearing in Washington just after this happened on 9/11, where we had a very secure briefing with the Secretary of State, with members of Congress. It was a bipartisan meeting, and really there was an awful lot of stonewalling going on in that meeting. Every question that was asked that day, it was said, well, this is under investigation, we don't want to jump the gun. And then just the next day it came out that it certainly was not in response to the YouTube video. So I am concerned about that. I'm concerned about our foreign policy in general, that Ronald Reagan talked about peace through strength, and we have neither right now. So thank you.
I agree with Anne Marie to some extent that violence against any diplomats is unexcusable, just like violence against anyone is unexcusable. And I think that we have to look at the whole of foreign policy as to why people would want to attack and kill a U.S. ambassador in a foreign country. And while we can say that we want peace through strength, I think there's also the idea that we need peace through peace, and peace through security, and peace by having a foreign policy that does not instigate terrorism against U.S. citizens in other countries. And we've already seen blowback, violent attacks on members of the U.S. military in Afghanistan, for example, for the drone attacks in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And we've seen attacks on U.S. military personnel as a result of things like the Quran burning that happened in Afghanistan. So we have to be very careful when we talk about security, because it's not just about military capacity. We have the largest military of any country in the world. It's 6 times bigger than the next biggest military spender, which is China. So I think the way to really guarantee peace is through a foreign policy that keeps us out of the complicated affairs of other countries. And the Middle East is one of the most turbulent regions in the world, and there have been different wars and conflict there for many, many years. And the U.S. does not have to be responsible for solving other countries' problems. We need to make sure that our foreign policy does not instigate hatred against the U.S. And I think it's very important that President Obama does take responsibility for what happens right now. But unfortunately, there's a bipartisan consensus in Washington between the Democratic and the Republican Party that the U.S. has to be the policeman of the world, and that's just not the case.
Carol Abayad, is that?
Thank you very much. You pretty much covered my question. I was concerned about Hillary taking the blame. I disagree that it's necessary. I agree with what you said. It sounds to me like pressure may have been applied to get her to take the fall for the administration, because even though that's not the president's job, isn't everything the president's job? And if I can just say one other thing, I did a little homework before I came, because this is my first town meeting. And thank you again for being here. And I'm sorry that Mr. McVeigh is not here, because I had a conversation with one of his representatives on the phone, and I would have liked to have asked him some questions. So I think that the fact that he's not here may speak volumes. My other concern was, I'm not sure my figures or whatever, but it seemed to me that somebody was accusing the administration of spending a great deal of money to counteract an ad or for the movie or something that was out. Do you know anything about that? And how would you feel about the government spending our money to basically apologize for an action that we hadn't anything to do with? This was a movie. It was just a movie. And the fact that we had repercussions against our citizens for a movie by a body of people who claim to be religious, I'm just curious to know what you feel about that.
Ursula, why don't you begin?
Sure. I think that it wouldn't be the first time in the U.S. history that we have done these kinds of things. You know, U.S. forces drop things like leaflets in foreign countries often to explain our policy to people on the ground. So I don't think it's unprecedented for us to try to ameliorate a situation like that is obviously very explosive. And while it's not we don't have to apologize for the actions of individual citizens when they have repercussions such as this that result in the death of U.S. government employees and ambassadors, I think it's warranted for the president, for the administration to take any actions to prevent future attacks such as that. And so while the administration wasn't responsible for the movies, I think it was a reasonable preemptive action. But I think there's more to be said about what our relationship is with the Muslim world, given how sensitive of an area it is. So I think that we have a long way to go before we can have peace and understanding between people of all religions. And I think it's a good first step to have some kind of communication that people in the U.S. aren't hateful people, that we're caring people, and that not all people in the U.S., are anti-Muslim, or that not all people in the U.S. favor war. And so I think that it is completely reasonable for us to communicate with people in the rest of the world to make sure that we don't have future terrorist attacks. And I think that there's a balance between having intelligence and showing the rest of the world who we really are, that we are a good-willed, peace-loving nation.
Well, let me begin by saying that the 9/11 in 2001 was not provoked by something this country did. Those were people who do not care about peace, do not think that the American way of freedom and liberty is the right way to go. And they flew in, they came into our country, and they killed 3,000 Americans. I'm not going to say that this country, nor will I ever admit this country was responsible for that. That was the fault of radical Islamists. But what, a couple of things. First of all, your question about the ad. They did run an ad. It cost hundreds of thousands of dollars of American taxpayer dollars to run an ad over there apologizing basically for this YouTube video. That YouTube video is what America stands for. That's freedom of expression. It's a First Amendment right. It is fundamental to what the United States of America is. As a nation, our goal should be to bring others up to where we are at, not to sink down, not to compromise, not to apologize for our way of life. We are, and I say this all the time, the greatest nation in the history of the world, despite our problems, because of what this country stands for. And this country stands for freedom and opportunity. And that Constitution is a relevant document, and included that is the freedom of speech, our First Amendment. So I'm not going to apologize for what happened, and nor do I think we are to blame. This country has gone over, and we have, whether you agree or you disagree with the war, we are fighting a battle that was started here over in the Middle East. And when we're over there, we're defending our interest and our national security, and that's the role, one of the true roles of the government, is to keep this country safe. It's important for this country, and this administration has not done it, to be a good, reliable ally to Israel. And when we do that, Israel is on the front line for this nation. They represent the same values that we do: democracy, freedom, religious freedom, versus the alternative. And when in foreign affairs during this whole period of the Arab Spring, we had several hearings because the concern of the committee, the concerns of the members of Congress was, we are supporting in Libya, and it may come out that the weapons that were used to kill our ambassador and our American citizens were actually weapons that we supplied to Libya during the Arab Spring. And so, during that period of time, the concern was, well, who are these people that are going in? Who are causing this uprising in Libya and in Egypt? And yes, Mubarak was a dictator, but he was the devil we knew, and there was a certain amount of stability, and there was freedom, and oil was flowing, and no one was intimidated. And it was this administration that said, we want to push this Arab Spring along, and we provided weapons and other support to the rebels in Libya, and I think it's, oh, sorry, I missed time. And I think that should be a concern to every American.
Jim Quinn. Jim, here, do you want me to read it, or do you want to go ahead? Why do you think Dan doesn't want to debate? I don't write them, I just read them.
I guess I'm up first. I think it should be of concern to everyone, because when someone doesn't want to come and tell you what they believe in or what they stand for, either they don't believe in or stand for anything, or they're afraid to tell you what they stand for or they believe in, or they don't want to talk about the record and what they voted for. I think Dan owes it to the people in this district, if he's asking for their support, if he's asking for their vote, that he should come here and he should answer questions and should tell you where he thinks, what he thinks about issues. I personally had the opportunity to withstand, and you've all seen them, the ads over the last 6 weeks. Untruthful distractions, distortions of my record that Dan should be held accountable for, that they are not true, that they are not, the last one that's up is about free trade, saying I shipped jobs to China because I voted for a free trade agreement with Colombia. Now, it's that kind of that's so, I think, insulting to the voters, insulting to the people who live here, that says, number one, your vote is not important enough that I can come to Wayne County at noontime on Tuesday afternoon and listen to what your issues are, hear your concerns, and tell you where I stand on the issues. It's a very basic part of the democratic process. It's something that you all should expect, and I mentioned it in my opening remarks. There is such a large disconnect from government and the people. It's why we find ourselves in situations where you've got all these regulatory agencies passing rules and regulations that impact municipalities, impact our farmers, impact our job creators, and they have no clue about that connection. And Washington has got to be accountable. That's why we've held so many town halls and we've been so accessible. We work for the people of this district. We work for the people in this district. That's what our job is. We're public servants. And if someone can't come into this county and talk to you and ask for your vote, then I think everyone, whether you're a liberal or you're a conservative, should be very concerned about that kind of representation.
Well, I don't want to speculate about why Dan McVeigh would not be here to answer questions, although I do know that according to his campaign and a news release I saw earlier today, he's at Thornton Park in Syracuse asking that Anne Marie Buerkle take a stand on hydrofracking. And I think it would be much better to